right, Wayne's gonna come and do an intro.
All right, guys, this is Wayne. I'm here with my good friend, Mr. Jim Gale, and he's the owner of Food Forest Abundance. He's got hundreds of years, well, actually not hundreds of years, but a lot of time in this field of growing food. And so we can talk about planting a vegetable slash food garden, because we do like to grow fruit. I prefer fruit myself, but a basic food garden in your backyard, or for me here at the gym. Right now, we're in front of Riverside Fitness, in front of the class studio. The landlord has given us permission to build a food garden, and we're just going to walk you through some of the things that we've done up until now. I'm going to hand it up to Jim. He's going to talk about why we want to grow our own food at this time.
Hey everybody, and I want to thank Wayne we met a few years back, and he has got food growing all over the place for the community. There's papaya and tons of perennials and annuals and food growing all over. So what I'm going to do, my part of this is to present to you ideas that will inspire and empower you to grow food at home. And this is possibly the most important video you will ever see. And I don't mean that tongue-in-cheek, I mean that very sincerely, because all the problems of the world can be solved in a garden. And that might sound like a big claim, but as I get into it, you'll understand why. So the top 12 reasons, I'll do one or two at a time, then Wayne will jump in, and we'll stagger it a little bit. So permaculturalists, and by the way, if you don't know what permaculture is, it's a sustainable agricultural design science that has been proven the world over to be able to produce way better food, way healthier food, more nutrient-dense food, more food per acre than monocrop agriculture, which is killing the planet on many levels. So, permaculturalists and the United Nations do not agree on many things, but they agree on one thing, that we only have a couple generations left of soil. The way we're mining, poisoning, destroying our soil will end, because as Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, a nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. Well, we are now not just a nation destroying our soil, but we are a global society. So that's a big enough reason right there. If you really understand that, then that'll be the reason for you to plant edibles. And I also want to talk a little bit about the difference between annuals and perennials. Annuals typically harvest within 3 to 6 months. You know, your farm crops in Minnesota, you plant them in May, they harvest by fall, and sometimes you can get 2 harvests a year, right? Well, perennials, which is the basis, the foundation of permaculture, you plant one time and they produce food for hundreds of years. So, in fact, there's a tree, an olive tree in Greece, in the island of Crete, that was planted between 2,000 and 3,000 years ago, and it's still producing food.
Ta-da! All right, great information so far. What I'd like to show you is what we started off with and why I went the route that I did. Okay, so I'm just going to grab the camera and show you that.
And for my friends, I'm going to do the same.
All right. There we are. So if you look at the ground we got going on here, this is bark. This is bark that was left over to cover weeds and grass. All right. If you move the bark, you're gonna have pretty good soil. So I wanted to save that to use it for my food to grow in. Cool. All right, so if you have a lot of weeds, too acidic soil, rocks, things like that, and you want to build a garden, just move the top stuff off and make it high enough that the food that you're planting has sufficient room to grow. All right, I planted Brussels before, kale, where the roots couldn't dig deep enough because I had a closed box. On the bottom of the box, it was closed. Which is normal vegetable garden beds. So this one is open. So there's no bottom to this box, so that the roots that need to dig deeper can dig deeper. Now the reason you would want a box that is closed on the bottom is so it's movable. So you move out of your house, you take all the boxes with you. Lucky for me, this person donated these boxes because they're turning their whole backyard into a food forest without bedding boxes. So this is perfect. So the soil that I used is basically mushroom compost mixed with regular topsoil. You don't want to be too heavy on your compost because it'll be too rich and it will kill your seedlings and possibly your seeds. So mix it with either regular topsoil or just mix it with the native soil, the soil that's in the ground already. Cool. So that's the start of it. This is about 12 inches.
Yep.
So this is a 12-inch box, which is normal for gardening. I have got some higher ones at home because I have some deeper rooted kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. They do need more depth. So I just went a little higher. And I estimated higher last year because I was composting all my food scraps in a vegetable garden during the fall. So it will just keep feeding the soil so I don't have to buy new compost the following year. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of minutes. All right, back to Jim.
All right, so we talk about return on investment in our business society a lot. And it's important to note that if we're going to expend energy, we want to produce a yield, whether that be in business or in food production. What's the return on investment? If you plant a tree and it produces for your grandkids, I think that's a pretty good return on investment. The other thing is food security. Now, if you go to the local canned goods section of your grocery store, your local grocery store, you will see the relevance of this. Throughout history, there have been, in fact, I just posted an article on my Jim Gale and Food Forest Abundance Facebook page about how many people are dying right now of malnutrition and starvation. And actually, this number is incredibly low because malnutrition is what causes disease and disease. Now, how many people are dying in our culture of autoimmune and cancer and all these different diseases and diseases? Well, the numbers are skyrocketing. Why is that? I believe it's in large part due to the stress of our society, but even more so in the food we eat is less nutritious now than it was 20 or 30 or 50 years ago. And then also, I'm sure you've heard this, we're going through the 5th or 6th mass extinction of species on our planet. Why is that? It's because of agriculture. It's because of monocrop agriculture, which Bill Mollison, the father of permaculture, who's an incredibly wise guy, said is the most destructive practice ever taught. And it's taught in our colleges and universities, and it's destroying our world.
All right, this is some powerful information, all right? The quotes that he's thrown out there just come from so many smart people that have lived this life and they've lived it correctly. We, our generation right now, most of us, this is brand new, right? Back in the hippie days, but those were people who are these people? They look funny, they dress funny, they act funny, but in honesty, all they're trying to do is get back to Earth, right? They're trying to connect back to Earth, and that's what gardening does for us. It's not only about eating the food, it's about connecting with the Earth. So I don't like to wear gloves when I work, or even shoes. I'm wearing shoes today only because this is a business, and I think by law I have to. Don't know. My wife is probably mad at me right now because I don't have a hat on. I did put sunscreen on. This is important. But I like to work with my hands in the compost / soils. This is where all the microbial energy is. This is a microbial world. There's more microbes in a hand of soil than there are stars in the sky. That's unbelievable. We have 10 times more microbes in our body than cells in the body. 10 times more. So we have to connect the two together. And the only way to do that is by playing in the dirt, working in the dirt, and then eating the foods that come from the dirt. So it's important to have a rich soil, and those will then feed the plants and the seeds. We eat them, everybody goes home happy. All right? I'm going to have Jim do one more of these things right now.
Yeah, and I do want to mention something. If you use sunscreen that is not organic and not all natural, then it is poisonous. And I mean poisonous with a capital P, capital all letters. It's poisonous. Don't use that crap. I'm very serious about that. Do your research on that. The sun, somehow our body turns sunlight into vitamin D. It's a magical process. We all need it. Many people are sick because they don't get enough vitamin D, right? So just wanted to share that with you. So Jane Goodall is one of my favorite. I grew up, they called me Nature Boy growing up, and she has a quote. God, brings emotion to me. We are going to look back on this dark era of agriculture and wonder how we could have ever thought it was a good idea to use poisons to grow our food. Poisons, as Wayne said, this is life. How are we so arrogant as a society to think that we can change what Mother Nature has done for us forever, and all of a sudden put some chemicals that are literally poisons? If you do the research on where this stuff comes from, it was Agent Orange, it was poisons that were used to kill people, and they saw that it also killed plants. So they said, okay, well, let's throw this in and see if it kills plants in the gardens of Minnesota. Well, sure it does, and it also kills people still the same today. So be aware of that. That just blows my mind. And also, food grown at home. When you pick something that's ripe, how does it taste? Well, that taste isn't just the wonderful flavor. Compared to when you go to the store, most food there is between 11 and 20 days old from the time it was picked. And there's certain kinds of spinach and different, everything starts losing nutrients the minute you pick it. So when you pick it and you eat it right as it should be eaten, then that is the best and healthiest way to do it. So in fact, there's some very broad studies done on this, and very specific as well. The composition data found median declines in up to 40 or even 80% in minerals of the food that is growing through monocrops and picked not ripe. So that's another reason to plant some fruit trees in your yard.
Yes, and on that point, so picking a fruit and eating it, if you want to correlate that to how the plant actually works. So when it's in the soil and you water it, the roots will absorb the energy, absorb the microbes, absorb the nutrition, bring it up the stem and put it into the plant. That plant, that fruit is alive. We're living organisms. So the more living raw foods we eat, the healthier. Even down to banana peels. Scraping your potato skins off. Potato skins are very healthy for you. They have nutrients in them. But as soon as you peel them and cook them, you start losing those compounds, the sulfur compounds, you start losing the nutrition value. Still healthy for you as far as a quality of food, but not the same as when you go raw. No one's going to eat a raw potato. I get it. I don't know. You eating raw potato?
I'm crazy about raw potatoes.
Okay.
It is just amazing. With a little bit of salt, Himalayan sea salt, or some really good non-bleached and poisonous salt, I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
Well, there you go. So let's get into gardening. So besides the soil, I also like to use Lucas Nursery. Has some really good starter soil. They've been in the business since 20 to 30s. It's just up the road here. But Fox Farm is a great opportunity for soils. The one we have here is mushroom compost, which I found on Facebook Messenger, Facebook's marketplace. The guy had some leftovers, so we went over there, picked it up, and brought it over. So it's basically just all the leftover mushrooms, and they just composted it. So very nutritional for the soil, for the ground. Let's talk about what I'm planting, and we have two beds. We have one in the front, one in the back. This bed is going to get complete full sun, 6+ hours. This bed, half of it is going to be cut off probably around 1 or 2 o'clock and get some shade till the rest of the day. So it's a little less sun here compared to here. So you do want to watch what you're planting. Some plants need more sun, some need less. All right. The way I'm going to put these seeds in as well is I'm going to put the tallest in the back. And the reason for that is because when you drive in here and all you see is this tall kale in the front, that's all you see. But if I can tear them to the back, then people will have to see we got spinach and we got some carrots growing. We got the low-lying vegetables growing, and then we bring them up in the back. So it looks cleaner, it looks neater. Obviously, you don't have to do that at home. It's something to think about. If this was against the wall and you are planting here and you plant these big plants and your spinach is in the back, you can't get there. So you have to place the beds where you have access to all the vegetables and fruits, because you need to get in there, pull weeds, pull the fruit, maybe trim some dead leaves off. So the planting of the seeds is important. We're gonna also plant, I don't have any here today, some marigolds, which helps protect the plant from bugs. We use some neem oil to spray them down when they get a little older. Same things for bugs. Most people out there, when I talk about gardens, talk about either bugs, fungi, or deer or animals eating their plants. And I had one farmer tell me that he just grows more so they can eat too. That's the option, but there are ways to combat that. All right. Don't give up on your growing. Some of you guys I know have given up already. Okay, so I'm gonna plant. I have two options here. Pretty cool options. I'm just gonna reach over here. So this is spinach, and we just found this. Maybe you guys knew this about as long before I did. But what happens with seedlings, they're so small that when you put them in, you might end up with 4 or 5 small seeds all growing, and then they just get, and then moisture gets in the bottom sometimes, and they just die off. All right. So this is actually placing seeds at a distance that's specific to growing spinach. All right. This product is called seed tape. So we'll get into how to produce your own seeds too, all right, which is going to be a pretty simple process. So this is what it looks like. There's seeds maybe every 1-2 inches there. You put in the soil, and then we're going to cover them up. This calls for about, I think it's maybe ½ an inch at the most. Yeah, ½ an inch firm and light on top, all right? So we don't have to dig it in if we don't want to. We can just grab some around, put it on top, and push it in. I'm going to separate these a little bit more. They're in strips.
Yep.
So I'm going to put a strip down, cover it lightly, put a strip maybe, it's recommended to do about 1.5 to 2 inches away from each other, so when they grow up, they're not crowding, all right, which gets airflow going through. The airflow is just going to help keep the bugs off, keep the diseases down, and help it just get air to the bottom of the plant.
And if you have plants that don't come in these fancy little strips, a diamond pattern is going to get you much more yield per size of your garden bed than a standard row pattern. So think about the diamond pattern, because you're alternating spaces and you're getting more room for the plants.
I'm going to have him demo that, okay, in a second. So most of your low-lying plants like this, 7 to 14 days is when it's going to come up, which is pretty quick. That's awesome. Put a seed in, put some water down, and 7, 14 days later you got seedlings growing and you can see food. It's just exciting to see that. Your kids will love it. The first time they see a plant come from a seed, it's going to blow their mind. Because right now they think the food comes from the grocery stores, right? Alright, so then I have, let's see, we got kale. I'm going to plant some in the back. I brought a couple seedlings. I'm going to plant those in the back. We got some beets. I'll plant them next in row. They don't grow as tall. I got a couple of Brussels I'm trying here, and they're going to be further back as well. Spinach I'm going to put in the front. Asparagus behind the spinach. Now cucumbers. So these need trellis. Can they run in the ground?
Not really. They'll get rotten, moldy, and
so these need trellis, and I'm not going to put this in this area here. Trellis takes up space as well. Now, we love cucumbers. They're very good for you, but I have other spots in my garden I'm going to plant these. All right. All these about ½ an inch to an inch in the ground, cover up, and water. I don't think I have to demo that to you. All right.
All right.
About the diamond for
the diamond. Okay, so a diamond pattern, depending on what kind of plant you want. You know, if you put this on a piece of paper, you grab a white piece of paper and put dots on the piece of paper in rows, you'll count up, like let's say you do a little box, you'll count up how many dots are in a row. Well, if you do a diamond pattern, you get more space in between. So in other words, you alternate the dots, right? And it depends on the plant. Some plants like this are a couple inches apart. Some plants are 6 inches. Some plants are even larger area. So number 5, by the way, on the top 12 reasons to grow your garden. Did you know that lots of studies have shown that gardening is similar to meditation as to how it affects your body and creates wellness. I think that's pretty cool. So if you haven't found a reason yet to grow food at home, I'm going to keep going. I've got a few more. Number 4, it is estimated that the average food on your plate, on your dinner plate at home for dinner, lunch, whatever, comes from 1,500 miles away. So imagine the resource chain that's needed, the expense, the supply chain. You're talking about avocados that come from Mexico or Chile, or some plants are grown here. They go to China for processing, and then they come back here. That is radically unsustainable practice, right? So now imagine planting a fruit tree that your grandkids and their grandkids can feed off of. How simple is that? And by the way, that's the difference between these annual beds, which are great. Everybody should have these now because we're going through an amazing time. Nobody knows what's to come. This is short-term food. That is the healthiest, best possible food you can have. The perennials are more of a longer-term process. 1,500 miles, that's just crazy. More than 200,000 acres of forest are said to be burned every day. Every day. Now, that number doesn't even seem real to me. I don't know if somebody's exaggerating that number because it's just mind-blowing. But even if it's 10% of that, that's too much. That's unsustainable. And that's all for monocrops. Permaculture actually builds soil. When you get done with a permaculture crop, you've got better soil than when you started the process. Because soil is life. Soil, as the UN and as the permaculturists agree on, soil is key to the health of our society. And then it's fun. I mean, we're out in the backyard gardening the other day, and my daughter got hold of the hose, and chaos ensued. It just got crazy. We were all spraying each other. We were soaking wet, laughing our asses off. It was absolutely amazing. So, if you can, and my goal here is to inspire you, to get you to connect with one of these reasons. The other one that is not on this list, but it's very important for many of you, is it's simple. It's so simple. All of these seeds, you can throw them down, you water 10, 15 minutes a day if it's not raining out. And I'm going to say that again because that truck was really loud. It's so simple. You plant the seeds, you water 10, 15 minutes a day, you can put them on a timer if you want, and nature does the rest, folks. Yeah, you're going to lose some. Who cares? These seeds don't cost anything relative to the value that you get out of them. So, folks, start planting. Go in the backyard, plant an apple tree, plant something if you're in Minnesota, plums, walnuts, pears, apples, raspberries, blueberries, blackberries. Tons of different plants grow there that you might not be aware of. Write in Google, what perennials grow well in Minnesota, and you'll get a whole list of stuff. Also, if you want to have an edible landscape planted in your yard, get a hold of me. We also do raised beds. Food Forest Abundance is my Facebook page, and because my personal page is kind of maxed out at about 5,000, so check us out at FOOD Forest Abundance, 3 words, on Facebook, and we will come to your house. We will build a raised bed garden, and we will actually plant perennials as well, so you can have food production short term, and you can have food production for generations to come. And stay tuned for the last one. It's a big one.
All right. So I want to just hit on something with the fruit being shipped across the country, so all the world, right? But it's not only do they pick it, put it in a box, and ship it to Publix, and you go buy it a day later. This stuff is months. So I learned the hard way. I did a fruitarian diet about a year and a half ago, right in the mango papaya season, and I was loving mango. There's a lot of varieties out there, by the way, and it was just a beautiful taste. You know, you can go buy mango, it's soft, it's great to pick. You wait till it goes yellow, eat it, unbelievable. And then as we got out of the season, it got harder at the store. I'm like, why? What just happened to our mangoes? And come to find out that these mangoes and your oranges and a lot of bananas, they get stored in oxygen-depleted containers or they get frozen. Then they get shipped when people need to buy them, right? So demand goes up. And then they get put out in the store, and then we go buy them, and then we take them home, wait for them to get soft. Here comes all the fruit flies, like, what is going on? So growing your own food just eliminates all that process, and it is easy. And if it was that easy, everyone will be doing it. We hope everyone catches on and just starts doing it. Some of us grow better tomatoes than the next person who grows better spinach. All right, well, let's connect and share it. Why not? Let's share the food so we can benefit from both. My yard is on the side I got sun, on the back I have shade. So I can't grow full sun in the back. And if you have full sun, then maybe you can grow things that we can share. So it's all about that. I do want to touch on when you're buying things like this. So, and I've learned the hard way too. So in general, you get one plant, all right? If you look at the back of the ticket, it's going to tell you how much sun it needs. This needs full sun. Place it 24 inches apart. Planting depth, container deep. Everything you need to know is on there. Maturity, 74 to 80 days after planting. This guy already has flowers on it. It does have one small pepper on there ready, so we know it's ready to go. When you take them out,
I squish it a little bit. Yeah.
all right. When you take them out, this guy's been watered awesome, right? It's very soft, wet. The roots are all over, which I will come back to in a minute. When you plant them, it says container deep on the back. All right. Jim asked me this question. Is that when I at the store at Lucas today, they were talking about planting an inch below the top. So this is not completely covered over here. Some of the reasons because you don't want to cover all the leaves on the bottom as well. So if you want to pick the leaves off a little bit, keep a little more depth if you want. All right, what do you know about planting this?
I've always planted them flush, but people know a lot of things I don't know, so I'm loving the learning.
Yeah, so it is a learning process. When you buy containers, and you look at the root system. It's just circling and circling and circling. It's looking for nutrition, right? So when you plant your own seeds, you give it enough depth that it doesn't have to circle like that. And that's one of the reasons, I'm not saying this is going to happen to this guy, but one of the reasons why some of your seedlings you purchase die off. And it looks so good and healthy and fresh. You're like, this is perfect. Well, this is what they're used to. Now you take it out and you put it into a different soil, a different wetness, different microbial world, different fertilizers that are in your soil already. It might shock it.
It will.
So you want to make sure if you're doing this that keep as much soil as you can when you put it in. Now, when I said I learned the hard way is that what I like to do is find the ones that have like 3 or 4 spouting out, right? So then I think I'm really smart, and I separate them. So I buy one plant and I end up with 4. But when you separate them, you lose that soil. Now you put them into your native soil, and I haven't had much success on getting more of those things to grow. So leave them as is. Put them like this. Now this costs $4. If you buy a seed, it's $2.50 for I think 100. That's the difference. This is instant gratification. This is going to take some time, sometimes 60 days. But if you're on the right schedule, you plant right after frost, you should be good to go in a couple of months. I like to plant at different times so that I have constant growth going. So it's not everything comes in, we pick it all and it goes out. It's something comes in, the next one's going to be 2 or 3 weeks later, the next one 2 or 3 weeks later, and then I've got 3 tomato plants on different times. Because to be honest with you, I don't can, I do freeze, but I don't can as a lot. So eating all the tomatoes that I have on one plant is too much for me. Alright? What else?
Alright, so a bunch of things popped up while Wayne was talking. Thank you. That's just awesome info. Well, I'll go to the number one reason in my psychology after learning what I've learned about the world is freedom. So right now we are beholden to other people for our most basic of needs, right? And how's that going? Well, it's kind of scary. It's from a range of just a teeny bit scary to holy cow scary, right? I mean, you can go to the toilet paper section of the local store and find that out. So how does food production, local water storage, local energy produce freedom? Well, how would you feel if you could walk out in your yard and you had all the food you needed at your fingertips? How would you feel if you stored your food if you live in Minnesota, for instance, where I'm from, so I keep referencing that. In fact, my mom was 15 years old before they had electricity in her house. She grew up in an outhouse in Minnesota winters. So all the food that they had, like 90-some%, unless they had a treat, like going in buying some ice cream or whatever, all of the food came from their farm. Plus, all the money they made came from their farm, right? And their kitchen food was, and they didn't know permaculture back then. They lived it to some degree. Now they still use practices. Over time, we learn technologies. And by the way, this is one heck of a technology right here. I don't know who created this. We can call it God or source or whatever, or nature, but that technology is when you put permaculture together. Permaculture is the mimicry of what works in nature, but adding components to it that serve us as humans. So when you mimic nature properly and you do nitrogen fixers and beneficial insect attractors and layers of food production, that's how you can have all the food you need at home. And there's 11 states where it's illegal to take water from your roof and put it in a rain barrel. That is ridiculous. I would not follow that law. And I'm not telling you not to. You know, I got to do my disclaimers, but I would not. So anyway, the best way for our society to have freedom and sustainability is to grow food, to harvest water, and harvest energy locally and at home.
All right, I want to add two things. One is that once we planted, we're going to put some leaves on top for mulch. All right? Okay, so. Oh my gosh! So, I stole this from my neighbor.
Yeah, this morning they were everywhere.
Who's throwing it out. Obviously, he did a great job of cleaning up his yard, and I appreciate that. But these are just dead leaves that aren't dead. There's still microbial life in them. So we're going to use this for a mulch as opposed to going out and buying expensive mulch that's out at any one of your stores. I did ask Jim about the question, is it too acidic for the soil? Quickly answer that for us.
So it can leach some of the important nutrients from your soil, so you want to put them on top. You don't necessarily want to mix them in your soil. You want to lay them out so the sun, you don't want the sun hitting your soil. This is nature's nutrient packet right here. It will leach into the soil, but not mix within it.
So we're going to put this on for mulch. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about is...
And just one more thing, sorry Wayne, unless you compost it first. So if you put these in a big mound and you mix them with a little bit of manure and a little bit of soil and you put water on them and you put a tarp on top, and this guy Nicholas Bertner, who's a permaculturalist, just incredibly wise and practiced in this art, he can create incredible soil in 18 days. So check him out online on YouTube and so on.
All right. What to do with your food scraps. If you eat a lot of fruit and vegetables, you got a lot of scraps, okay? Don't throw them away. It's full of nutrition, all right? And it feeds the microbial world that's in the ground. That's what they eat. That's what they thrive on, and that's what's going to make your plants thrive. So one way to do this, I have holes in my backyard all over the place. Sorry, Amy. But one way to do this is you dig a trough in the middle of your plants. So I'm gonna have two rows here. I'm gonna have 2 rows in the back, and then in the middle, probably 2 inches away, 3 inches away, I'm gonna dig down. Normally, the deeper the better, up to 4 or 5 feet if you want to go that deep. Throw them in, you cover back up. All right. The following year, you can then take one of your rows and plant it on top of the food scraps. And it's going to be rich compost. You don't have to go buy more compost or fertilizer the following year. All right? That's how nature does it. That's how it does it. You might be getting things growing out of there. So if you put in squash seeds or cucumber seeds or left over from your cooking or juicing, you might get some growing out there for free. So free plants growing. Just take them out, plant them somewhere else, and keep the process going. All right? We appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you learned some things. Send questions through the comment section, and when we're done with this, we'll be happy to answer some of them. Food Forest Abundance, they do, once again, do this for you, where you don't have to think about all the questions that come up in farming or growing foods. They can just come to your house, set it up, and answer all the questions there. All right? Okay, thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good stuff. Let's start growing food.